Okay, so that was an Ophidian. Um, Realistically, you probably skipped that video. I would recommend skipping that video. It was 45 minutes and it was really just a rant. But now we get to move on to Ogre. And Ogres are cool. They have interesting makeup. So the tusks here are you can paint them on. So you paint them above your like on the side, just going straight up as white. So you don't actually have to wear like big tusks. Really bonus points if you do because they're super cool, and they help with the lisp. Ogres are uh ogres are the simpleton big guys that hit really hard, and they you can make them angry. You know, they really fit that traditional big monster-y ogre kind of archetype. And they're not actually typically used as monsters. I don't think I've ever fought an ogre monster. Because they're much more akin to humanoids than a typical fantasy ogre. So we take a look at the ogre. This is like a human-sized type of thing. This isn't like a 10-foot tall type of ogre. These are regular human-sized kind of ogres. They're U-shaped, so if you want to play an ogre, you may play an ogre. Doesn't have it just like how dwarves are not short. They're bearded. But pointed ears, so you have to go a little bit hard in the paint here. You have to go pointed ears, tusks, warts, and skin ranging from mustard to dark orange. I think I've seen darker orange done a lot. Maybe because it's easier to get rid of the dark orange color than it is to wash off the mustard type color. But there's a couple more skin tones than just these colors specifically. So really, you want a somewhere in the goblinoid type of colored in terms of face, and you want some warts and tusks and pointy ears. Um, a very popular ogre in town, uh, which we have one that's played for a very long time, and they are named after their hat, and they wear a hat because wearing ears sucks. So they wear a hat instead, and they're named after that hat. And you're gonna meet that person at one day if you're playing this game, and you're gonna enjoy that because that person is a very kind person and they're a very helpful person, and their character is super cool and awesome. There's a history to ogres, but I mean, you don't really need to know that. If you would like to know about ogre history, please read this because there's a bunch of stuff with goblinoids like ogres, trolls, had a war. Ogres are very simple people. They do not have any natural enemies. I have, I have no enemies. If you if you're in your I have no enemies arc, play an ogre. uh, they're friendly. Most of them I've met are very friendly. I haven't really met a super angry ogre that gets mad at anything that he sees. I've met very soft-hearted. They're definitely the big guys with soft hearts type of character race. They're really cool. So that was the costuming for them. We'll go into the racial. So they have 5 athletics. So they have a lot of extra body. Spoiler alert, I'm pretty sure they have elder athletics, so you don't worry about this too much. They have 4 enhanced strength, which puts them past all the 2 enhanced strength things, but doesn't put them at like flesh golem or gargoyle level. Resist disease, resist poison. You can kind of see where and cannot use psionics. So you might look at ogre, base ogre, and be like, well, there's a lot of races with athletics. There's a lot of races with +2 enhanced strength. There's a lot of races with resist disease, resist poison, and there's a couple of races that cannot use psionics. What is unique about base ogre? And the answer is not a whole lot. They're roleplay for the most part. Now all these things are good, but there's nothing other than 4 enhanced strength. There's nothing here that says I'm an ogre, right? There's nothing here specifically that's like very ogre in the base racials, okay? Because it's all in the elder. So keep in mind though that this is the race that has all the resist poison, all the resist disease, the just a good amount of enhanced strength, like Minotaur level enhanced strength, and a really solid amount of athletics. That's a really good base to start. Okay, there's nothing wrong with playing a base ogre. You just don't have a very unique ogre skill at base ogre. And that changes when you go to Elder Ogre. So let's talk about Elder Ogres, baby! They get Battle Rage 2, which is very similar to the Minotaur thing. But they can do it 10 times. I don't know why Battle Rage 2 as opposed to just Battle Rage, but whatever. Uh, okay, so they get plus 25. I just read the other skill. Plus 25 body, plus 4 strength. We've talked about that with Minotaur, but that's pretty good, pretty solid. And you get to do it 10 times, and you can do it more than once in a combat. So you can be like, I want to battle rage 3 times, so now I get plus 75 and plus 12 strength. Like, that's an easy thing you can do. And at 3 build, it's not hard to pick up 10 of these. Uh, Forget Curse, 1 build. So we were talking about the elder curses with nomad, like nomad curse, and all the other curses that humans and folk and stuff get to throw that are like super annoying and super scary or whatever. Forget curse just means that you get to forget about it. You just say, "Oh, I got cursed. When was that? I don't remember getting cursed." Oh, well, they wouldn't use the word remember. Okay, we'll get into that. Uh, they simply forget the curse and it'll go away. this is this lines up on the side of comical, and there's a lot of fun moments when you're playing an ogre. So Forget Curse is in that sphere of, oh, it's really funny if they could just be so silly. If they could be, and I'm going to say dumb and unintelligent and dim-witted and stuff like that, but I'm not trying to say that meanfully. It's fun to play characters like that. And so they lean heavily into that aspect of, I'm a very of simpleton nature, big strong guy with a good heart, right? And if cursed by being able to just forget that you were cursed is very funny. Feat of Strength, which I think gets shared with a couple with these other guys here, or Control, because it's a goblinoid thing. But baby goblins are weak and tiny. Well, they're not actually tiny, but whatever. Um, Feat of Strength. So it doesn't mean that it. Effectively, what this means is that for one interaction, you have like a gazillion strength. Is kind of what that means. They could just this could also read just like you now for 1 feat of strength you may have for one time when you're using strength you can have 100 strength or something silly like that, right? Uh, like you could do something silly like that with you could read it that way, and that would be a perfectly good explanation of this. But realistically, it means that you may perform a feat of strength once per purchase and would be resisting, like with strength, with something that would require you strength to resist it. A massive blow. Massive blows are blows that get. So if you have a shield and somebody hits your shield with a massive, if you don't have, I think it's 4 strength is the minimum, or the amount of strength equivalent to them or something, then it goes past your shield and you get hit with it anyway. So massive says, I'm getting past this. This is hitting you even if you block it, is what massive says. So you get to, with a lot, and it's a strength based thing. So if you have a feat of strength, you can use your feat of strength to block a massive blow. Breaking down a door that may not be broken down by strength. So if somebody's like, here's a locked door and it's crazy locked and it's super magical and you're not breaking it down, you can do it anyway, which is super neat. There's a couple of times where I've ran into that type of situation, but yeah, that can happen. Moving one object which requires given strength, such as an anvil. um, and anvils are funny because there is actually mechanics for an anvil, I think, because of the armor crafter and the weapon crafter skill, and there's like an anvil mechanic thing. Uh, or throw one boulder, or so if there's like a big rock in the way, you can feat of strength push it. This spell does not affect damage delivered in combat in any way, and does not allow this ability does not affect any damage delivered in combat in any way, and does not allow a creature. It does not allow you to swing for massive. You just get to resist massive swings like normal. Um, a 10 build detriment for impeded speech. This detriment prevents the ogre from saying words larger than 1 syllable. Each time they accidentally say a word with more syllables, they take 10 points of body damage from an intense headache. So they're very simple, and I don't even think I could do it, but they would talk like this, and they would be very slow. I'm pretty sure very is there was more than one syllable. So I'd take 10 hit points of body. Right? It's hard. It's tough. So when the people that play ogre really well because you have to watch your syllables. So you get used to talking in like one syllable languages when you're playing ogre. And that really helps, I imagine, with the roleplay aspect of it and like getting into character because you can't. It's not that you can't, it's just that you get punished for it. And you're going to see why that's okay because you're thinking 10 points of body damage when I have like, if you do the math, like a starting character walks in with like 5, that's kind of like tough. Or like 5, like with 25 or like 50. Um, you're like, oh, that's weird. That would be a lot. That would be annoying. We're gonna get into elder athletics here in a second. Misunderstanding. The ogre cannot fully understand any commands given while under any kind of control. The control spell itself overtaxes the ogre's brain so much that he cannot be controlled due to this loss of thought process. If controlled and commanded to do something, the ogre may simply reply with, huh? And the words of the controller have no effect on him. So, one of the scariest things that you can encounter is when your teammate that you're fighting alongside gets an enslaved spell cast on them and they are now fighting you. And PCs are typically a lot scarier to fight than the NPCs most of the time. And so it's really spooky when your teammate gets enslaved and they go like, "Hey, kill your friends for me." And they really, most people go really hard because it's kind of fun. Most people when they're enslaved, they go really hard into the I'm enslaved and I'm trying my best to kill you guys because PvP doesn't really happen a whole lot. Um and so when it does, that's typically how it happens. And it's really scary when imagine if the big scary guy immediately turned around and started attacking you. That would suck. So ogres being so simple-minded that they get to just be like, "Huh?" and they can't be controlled is super cool. It's super cool. They don't have immune to charm, but they might as well because like charm is like sleep and enslave, and that's really all you cast from that. And this is pretty funny. It's also really good for 5 build. 5 build for saying I'm never getting enslaved is super cool. Good stick. It's the good stick. The character may walk up to a large tree at any time and tear off a branch for use as a weapon. Now, you don't actually use the branch for the weapon, okay? You roleplay that you are. But typically, people will have. It's a two-handed club, base 10 damage. And people have cool, crafted clubs that look like tree branches, which are super neat and it's a base 10 damage two-handed weapon, and you can make as many of them as you want, and no actual weapon tag is required. So if you're an ogre, people just trust that you can make infinite good sticks, so you're fine. So, and if somebody blows up your good stick, oh, I'll just find another good stick. I just find another good stick or something. You see how I'm like, it'd be tough to play an ogre with the syllable thing? Okay. Elder Athletics, 1 build, 10 body. All that it does is just enhance body total. Quantity 255. So we're going to get into some math here. We're going to pull up the calculator. 255 times 10 is that much body. Okay. And that's only 255 build. All right. So let's just say you want to put like 20 build in that. 20 times 10, 200 HP. That's nuts. Okay. Most people are walking around with like sub 200 HP. Most people or body. So Elder Athletics is nutty, and all the other Elder Athletics I think that we saw so far capped at like 10. Okay, these guys cap at you effectively they're not killing you with body. Being able to do 2,000 damage worth of body damage to an ogre is just it's just not gonna happen, dude. Like nobody's swinging more than like 100 something typically. Like sometimes you see somebody who's base swinging 150 because they did some dumb stuff, but like that's still like you have to hit that ogre like 20 times and that's with your base swing and not counting any sort of defenses that the ogre's going to have or them just not getting hit in the first place. Like it does not happen. So you have what essentially amounts to infinite amounts of body and the only way to drop you is by hitting you with like a slay or a similar effect, okay? Which is super good. It's super cool. So you really don't mess around with Elder Ogres unless you're throwing fight enders. And it's just very enigmatic of ogres that they have a crap ton of body. That's what you think of when you think of ogre, is a crap ton of body. This also has the subtext of I have 2,000 body, so when I do 10 points of damage to myself, it doesn't really matter. Which is why that the 10 points of body damage might seem kind of scary at first, but it's literally one of these. It's literally a single build worth of body for you. So that's like nothing. Uh, so you could theoretically play a really big ogre with a lot of elder athletics and just talk however you wanted. Most ogres don't do that. Most ogres go really cool accent type conversation and they only speak in one syllable and they do their absolute best. And there's fun times when they are learning new words that have big words that are more syllables, and they'll take the 30 damage or whatever because they're trying to learn a new word, right? Like they're trying to, because what you didn't see here on this skill was dim-witted, which I'm gonna be okay. Yeah, they don't have dim-witted like goblins, so they're not inherently dumb. They just can only understand one syllable words, and it's tough for them to understand other. And it's the tusks too. The tusks, like if you're physically representing tusks instead of painting them on yourself, that helps a lot because it's hard to talk when you have tusks in. So like a lot of this stuff kind of melting pots together to make a really cool race. And so when you saw the base stuff, it doesn't really do a whole lot. It's like, what is the ogre part about this thing? And it's all in the elders. It's all in this impeded speech, misunderstanding, good stick, the elder athletics, and then we'll talk about fight stuff and mage stuff. So yeah, so when we talked about magic spellcasting, we didn't see anything about interruption of an incantation, and maybe I could be wrong, so I'm going to preface this with there used to be an understanding of if you're casting your magic and you get hit while you're trying to cast your magic, you spend the magic points that it would have caught, like the sorcery or the spirit, that it would have costed you to cast that magic spell, and the spell is blown. So if you're saying, I summon the blah 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 blah, and then somebody smacks you with a sword, that spell is blown, and you spend the pool, but you don't get the effect. Uh, so and also to cast it in incantation, right? Eldritch is a common word that you have to use, and Eldritch is more than one syllable. So you would be taking 10 damage theoretically every time you casted an Eldritch type of spell with Eldritch Force. I summon X thing, right? Uh, you would be taking damage. So what Relentless Will, and then how what Elder Ogres tell you in game is they say, "Oh, I know mage stuff. I I know mage stuff." Uh, is that they cast spells. So this is if you want to be a spellcasting ogre, which is a thing. Uh, Additionally, the speech barrier, this does not prevent damage from using the words of spells in other settings. Yeah, so like enslavement. So if an ogre wanted to cast an enslavement spell, they would have taken they would have taken 10 body to do that, right? But this doesn't stop you. But if you're talking about the enslave spell, you got to think of a different way to say enslavement because enslavement is more than one syllable, right? So there's a lot and I think it's really cool because there's a lot of roleplay that comes from that, just from that, and it builds entire characters up, and it's that extra layer of chef's kiss, chef's kiss that makes this race an awesome race. And then they had a bunch of resists to poison disease. They get unaffected by poison disease, pretty stock standard for goblinoids. And then too dumb to quit. Fight stuff, elder. So they'll say, "Oh, I'm good at mage stuff," or "I'm good at fight stuff." You gotta pick one. I think this is kind of like an elder path, so you either get relentless will or you get too dumb to quit. For combat duration, and you get 3 of these. And you don't. This isn't like a use thing. This is a passive, and this is an activated thing. But for combat duration, the character activating the skill is immune to all fear, pain, nightmare, and sleep effects. If the character hits 0 body or below while the skill is active, they immediately fall down dead. Which you're not. You're an ogre. You're not hitting 0 body anytime soon. There are some spell effects that bring you to like one body or something silly, so that is like relevant to an ogre, but realistically, you're not hitting zero body. But if you happen to do, you're gonna skip the bleeding step and you're gonna need a grant life. But being immune to fear, pain, nightmares, and sleep at will, and not all the time, but only when you need to use it, and you get to do it 3 times a game, so like 3 of the big fights that you end up in, that's super good. So yeah, too dumb to quit. I fight stuff or mage stuff. You pick. But yeah, and we're gonna talk about the other. We're gonna talk about orc next and troll next, and just like goblin, ogre, or control, they're all under the goblinoid spectrum. And I think by now you've seen that all of them have like 10 resist poisons and 10 resist disease. It's a very commonly given skill, and for goblinoids it's like kind of enigmatic of what goblinoids are, so that's why they always have, if you see a goblin-y type thing, it's usually immune to poison, immune to disease. So that's just how it goes. So you're gonna see that in the other stuff, and that's, if you see the next videos and I just don't talk about it, it's because I'm tired of talking about it. We've seen those skills like 20 times now, I think. But yeah, that was ogre. Time to move on to orc.